Bill Maxwell, born in Oklahoma City, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He's recorded with and played with on albums and produced albums such as Andre Crouch, Sandra Crouch, The Winans, Danniebelle Winans, Victor Winans, Daryl Coley, Keith Green, Anita Baker, Cassandra Wilson, Kirk Whalum, Freddie Hubbard, Danniebelle Hall, Crystal Murden, Elton John, Quincy Jones. He's worked on movie soundtracks. He's done tons and tons of and he's still, I ran into him a couple of years back in Los Angeles at NAMM, the big music convention that happens once a year, and he was playing with the extraordinarily great Abraham Laboriel, which the two of them have been Batman and Robin, switching roles. Probably for 30 years or more, 40 years, and incredible musicians. We talked a little bit about this before, but a lot of people don't really know the story. You're considered a LA cat. You probably know that. You're considered a LA session cat, because a lot of I guess people, those records were so big back in the days with Andre and the Winans and everyone just assumed they would call that the West Coast, like everything was coming from the West Coast. But you're West Coast, but you weren't necessarily from LA. When you transitioned from Oklahoma City, I guess we could get maybe right to that point of the music when did you and Andre meet? Was this at the Mission?
Yes, I read something in, I think it was Modern Drummer, that they sent me to Joe Smith that talked about, I was one of the first gospel drummer he listened to. And it was funny to me because I was never a gospel drummer. I grew up playing in nightclubs. I started at 14. I started professionally when I was 13 with a blues guitar player named Jesse Ed Davis, who played with Taj Mahal and did the Bangladesh. He was a great blues guitar player. So I played rhythm and blues and R&B and jazz and nightclubs. And I took that as far as I could take it. I actually, I know you're in New York. I came to New York in the fall of 1971. Randy Brecker invited me to come out and audition for his group Dreams. Billy Cobham had left. Mm-hmm. And I was going to do it, but they didn't have any gigs booked, and I was afraid. I just was married and had a baby, and I didn't want to move to New York. And so an apartment in the Village was $400 a month, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm only paying $80 in Oklahoma."
Wow! And
I ended up taking a job. I quit the band I'd been in, which was a band that Harlan Rogers, Hadley Hawkins-Smith, and Fletch Wiley and myself were in. Mm-hmm. And I moved to Nashville to join a group called Barefoot Jerry. And that's it. I wasn't happy there. I wasn't playing, it wasn't my kind of music, and they didn't like me that much either, I didn't think. And I went out one day and just said, "God, if you can give me some peace, I'll do whatever you want me to do."
Wow.
That day, the band kind of broke up, and I went back to Oklahoma. I ran into a saxophone player that used to be in the band with me at the bank, and he said, "I thought you moved to Nashville." And I said, "Well, I did, but I came back." And he said, "Well, yeah, because I saw Hadley Hawkins-Smith, and he said you were going to join him down at the Mission." I'd never told Hadley that. He was just praying and believing for that. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go check it out.
Right.
And I went down, and that's when I gave my heart to the Lord. Right. And we got Harlan. He was playing and still in the band, and he'd been in mental hospitals and very depressed and giving him shock treatments. We led him to the Lord, and he quit the band, gave 2 weeks notice.
Wow.
And the drummer that had taken my place got hurt in a car accident, and they asked me to come play in the clubs for a weekend. And I was afraid because, all the drugs and girls and all that stuff. But
Right.
we went and we started witnessing to Fletch, telling him about the Jesus is real. And Fletch was a heroin addict. And I said, God will deliver you from that. And we prayed for him. He received the Lord, and he threw his heroin in the toilet, and he had no withdrawal.
Wow.
First miracle I saw. So we all went back to Oklahoma City, started working in this mission, and we had 5-night-a-week revival. 5 nights a week and then Sunday. And, and it would say, the band we had was called the Third Avenue Blues Band, and they advertised the Third Avenue Blues Band now playing for Jesus. So Andre heard about us from an evangelist named Kenneth Copeland, who had heard us there, and he told Andre, and then Andre came to town, and we went to see his concert, which was great. Danniebelle was with him, and he said, "I want to hear you guys' music." And so we took him down to the mission and played for him. And actually, we used to bug Andre about it because Hadley had a song that went, "Jesus is the Savior for the world today. Jesus has the answer because Jesus is the way." And Andre kind of ripped it, and turned it into Jesus the answer. And we said, "What?" And so, he kept calling, "You guys got to be my band." And we were starving, struggling. I took a job planting trees out by the airport. I couldn't plant a tree. I was terrible at everything. A friend of mine gave me a job at Long John Silver's Fish and Chips, and I was burning my hands on the grease. And I didn't know anything but being a musician. And finally, a guy gave me a job playing at Shotgun Sam's Pizza Parlor with him, organ and drums, so I could get by. So we were struggling. And a record company, I think it was Benson Records, but it could have been Word, out in Nashville. There was a big concert going on in Dallas called Expo 72. They had like 200,000 people there. Billy Graham was doing it, and Chris Christopherson was there, and Johnny Cash. And they hired us as the backup band to back up whoever didn't have it. So we went down there, just thankful to have any kind of job. And Andre was on the program.
We gotta sing it in the valley. Good God, I said Jesus saved. I said Jesus saved. Good God, He saved me. I said the Lord saved me. Good God, I said the Lord saved me. Everybody say Jesus saved. Jesus saved. Jesus saved. Jesus saved.
And that's when Andre really started saying, "Man, you got to be in my band. I'll let you guys do your songs, and you back us up." And 2 weeks later, he called and he asked Hadley and I, Could you come out and play on the Tonight Show? We auditioned. I can't believe they're going to put us on. And so we
Wow.
flew out, and that was my first time playing with Andre. It was on the Johnny Carson show in July of 1972.
My next guest is a marvelous performer, and he's going to be playing at the JVC Jazz Festival at the Avery Fisher Hall in New York City on June 27th, and at Expo 86 in Vancouver on the 2nd of August. His current album is called No Time to Lose. Would you welcome Andre Crouch?
Wow.
And so that was my start. I was 22 years old, I think. And that's how I got started with Andre.
So that was maybe like your biggest gig of your life at that point, right?
Yeah, but I didn't really think, it was, but I didn't really think about that. I kind of always, whenever I get ready to do it, I think, what is it I got to do, and what we're trying to accomplish, and play the music right, it was spiritually right.
Right.
Because it's not that big a studio or anything. It's not like playing in front of 200,000 people, which we just done down in Dallas. It's still a little small studio audience, but yeah, millions of people saw it. At that time, there was only 3 networks, I think. And Johnny Carson was probably getting 20 million viewers a night or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't think about that stuff.
Was Buddy Rich in that Johnny Carson band?
No, it was a drummer named Ed Shaughnessy, who was a copy of Buddy Rich.
Uh-huh.
Except he used 2 bass drums.
Okay. And then, so Buddy just used to make a lot of appearances on that show, though. I know he's been on the Johnny Carson show. I've seen some clips of him. I always thought he was part of the band.
Yeah, he was there a lot.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. Wow. So now the first album.
First album I ever played on for Andre was called Just Andre. And that was with the members of the band, Harlan, Hadley, and Fletch Wiley, and myself all played on that. But right before we joined him, Andre never liked me telling this story, but right before we joined him, he recorded live at Carnegie Hall.
Okay.
But I wasn't there. But he got the tapes, and he didn't like them. He didn't like the band, and he said, "Do you think you could replace the drums, and we could, redo this album in the studio?"
Right.
And the record company was sure that he couldn't do it, so they wouldn't give him the master. They made a 16-track copy of the master to work on.
Wow.
And Andre was being producer, and I'd never produced anything, but he went in with me, and they recorded the piano, had a pickup on it, so it wasn't mic'd, so you could isolate it. The piano was very clean, and Andre played great. So I just kind of turned everything off in my phones but Andre's voice and his piano. And I just matched it as good as I could and played through the whole album. And then Hadley Hawkinsmith redid Billy's bass parts. And then Hadley put on guitar, and then Harlan added organ, and Fletch played some flute. And then the singers came back in and re-sang their parts. And the only thing live on there was the audience and Andre. Andre didn't fix one thing.
Wow.
And that became his biggest album at that point. And it kind of got us used to working together. We were trying to figure it out. We had a great technical engineer who taught us about making loops for the crowd so we could change the order of the concert and how to edit things. Eddie Bracken, who was a master, and I just started absorbing like a sponge how to do this stuff.
Right.
So that was my first one, but I wasn't there. And then the first album I produced with him was Take Me Back.
Okay, so Just Andre.
Just Andre was recorded in 1972.
Okay.
Live at Carnegie Hall was recorded in 1972 in March, and I joined him in July.
Okay.
And we came out in 73.
You know, what was some of your tunes you remember from that Just Andre album that you really love?
God loves the country people. Good old-fashioned country people.
Max.
God loves the country people, good old-fashioned country people, hand clapping, foot stomping, leg slapping country folks. Cause when it comes to praise his name, country people are not ashamed. God loves good old country folks.
We are country people, good old-fashioned country people, hand clapping, foot stomping, good old country folks. When it comes to praise his name, country people are not ashamed. God loves good old country folks. Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah. Praise his name because our lives have changed. Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah.
Oh, how we love to praise his name. Singing hallelujah,
Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah. Praise his life because our lives have changed.
singing hallelujah.
Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah.
Oh, how we love to praise his name. Everybody. Here comes the Christ Memorial Choir. My father's the preacher. Reverend Benjamin Krause, same choir.
Hallelujah, since I laid my burdens down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I laid my burdens down. Since I laid my burdens down.
With the transitioning from some Midwest country barnyard, to some slapback shuffle funk in the end of the event, like whose idea was it to put that together like that? Probably.
Well, I just played the way I played. That's the way I played. Andre, all the background vocals and the Andre, everybody get together, black church thing. That was Andre. I didn't grow up in church anyway, so
Right.
that was him. I think the rhythmic things, the hand clap was my idea of where to put the beats, and I just played along. We just played like we played. It was really basically just Andre, Hadley, and myself.
Right.
I don't think Harlan even played on that.
I got my good friend Max Andre Gill. He's a producer extraordinaire.
Oh, great! That's great.
He and I go back like years and years and years, and we have those moments where we just sit in the car and start playing old records of Andre Crouch, the Hawkins, the Winans. I mean, like we're talking the records. I don't even want to call them old records. It's just old in terms of like the year they came out. Every time we listen to them, they're new to us.
Hello, how you doing?
Great, and you?
Yeah, doing good. In
Good.
Phoenix right now on a little vacation.
Oh, cool.
Had to get out of LA because it's locked down there,
Me too. That's what I did too. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Got up out of there.
Yeah.
Andrew Couchet introduced us.
Yeah, I remember. I remember you. How you doing? That's
Good, man. This is fun. This is a real honor to be, on the Zoom and talking to you and Reggie about your incredible career.
Well, thank you.
And life.
Right. There was a time when records were coming out and you turn around the album and then you can look and see who played what instrument, who produced, who co-produced, who arranged the strings. I don't remember how to pronounce it. Was it like Zakov or Zoto? Who was the guy that was doing a lot of string stuff for you guys, like on the Crystal Murden record?
His name is Leonard. Leonard, and it's a funny name to pronounce. It's Schuholm. Schuholm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
SJOHOLM. like Schweholm is the way they would say it.
Yeah.
Leonard, I met him in Stockholm. He was producing a Christian singer named Evie. And I loved his string writing. He was really good. And I did some sessions in Stockholm for him. I think he worked with the ABBA people. He was one of the top arrangers.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would come over, or we would meet in London or some, different places, and he would do the strings. And he was great. Still is great. He's in Stockholm still.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff was incredible. So
Sure was.
you went from, so then you did the Take Me Back album. So when you went from that Just Andre album and we got to the Take Me Back project, you had mentioned to me before that Andre started just feeling so comfortable with you, he would just kind of call you and say, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And you weren't really trying to get in that role. And is that how you transitioned into producing the Take Me Back album?
Yeah, I didn't have a plan. The only thing Andre said was, "I'm tired of the way my records sound," because if you listen to the records before we started, I Keep on Singing, they were pretty kind of poppy white, kind of up with people, kind of Fifth Dimension kind of thing. It wasn't real funky.
Yeah.
And I knew some guys in LA that were from Oklahoma and Texas, Dean Parks particularly, who I'd known in Fort Worth, Texas. And he said, "Why don't you hire the band for me? Because I want to produce this myself. Why don't you get the band together and just call who you think and I'll play the songs, you get who you think." So I immediately thought of Joe Sample. Ooh. And I got Wilton Felder to play bass. And I didn't think about the producing until he was getting ready to do vocals. He said, "Okay, we got a vocal session at 10. I said, "Well, Andre, you're the producer." And he said, "No, really, you're doing this more than me. So I'm gonna make you co-producer and I'll give you the credit." And give you the deal. And he had a lawyer draw up a deal. He was very generous. Wow. And he got me started. And as I think I told you before, the record company wasn't particularly thrilled with the Take Me Back album at the time, because it was kind of like it wouldn't fit in the format today because it was all over the place. We had It Ain't No New Thing with the banjo and clarinet and Dixieland horns. And we had They Shall Be Mine with blues guitar and Joe Sample's kind of bluesy piano playing. We had a Delphonics kind of song, I Really Love You, with sounded like the sounds of Philadelphia with an electric sitar. So it was all over the place. We had Take Me Back with Billy Preston. It was gospel. Mm-hmm. And they told me, I got kind of worried that they thought I had really messed Andre up by doing this. And every time I turned in a bill, like $25 for cartage, they challenged every bill, and I just felt like I was a failure. I turned in the master. No one said good job. And Andre was much tougher than me. He said, "I don't care what they think. I like it. It's the best record I ever did." And he just was like, we don't like that one, we'll make another one. Wow. And we turned it in, and it took off, and it won his first Grammy. And then everybody assumed I knew what I was doing, which I didn't.
Which you didn't.
I didn't.
Take me back. Take me back, dear Lord, where I first believed. I feel that I'm so far from you, Lord, but still I hear you calling me. Those simple
Hey, Sandra Elaine.
You know, they let anybody just speak in that dumb thing.
That's my little sister Sandra.
Come on.
Hey, Max, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm in Phoenix, where you can actually go to the gym and walk around and eat out.
I know you miss that eating out. How
Well,
you
I've
doing?
been eating in most of the time, but I don't like people telling me I can't go anywhere. I like going to the gym.
It's good to see you.
It's good
You
to
got
see
a
you.
haircut. What did you do to your hair?
Well, what it's called is not going to the hair and going to the hair salon, getting my hair colored. It's called the whites have come in, and I'm working. I'm tired, and this guy walks up to me, a Hispanic guy, and he says, "Oh man, I thought you was Donald Trump." And I said, "Oh, please don't say that to me."
Max,
It's because of the hair color.
it came to me in a vision, but I'm not gonna say what came to me.
Yeah, you better hush up, Patty LaBelle.
Max don't crack.
Yeah, that's right.
They still don't.
Well, I just wanted to surprise you.
Well, you did. You look great, Sandra Elaine. How's it
Yeah.
I
going?
feel good. I feel good. You know, I have my garden. You know, I have black eyed peas. I have what do I have? I'm looking at my garden. I have squash. I have celery. I have potatoes. I have kale. Oh, the kale. I gave Pete some kale. I have kale. So in case y'all run out of food, I have a garden here. A garden season.
I'll come back Sunday. I'll be over Monday.
See that? See that?
But it's good though. It's good. I mean, I love it. I go out there and play with my little dog, and I paint, and I have a good time.
First, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for coming on it and doing this. Are you going to do another record? I'd love to play on it.
Yeah, Bill Maxwell helps me.
Amen.
That's what I'll do.
She knows I do that, and
Yeah. Yes, I am. I'm planning on my. Max is going. I already asked him if he would help me. See, my brother left probably about 400 or 500 songs, so we're going to complete them. And Keith Crouch is going to be on the project with me. And so many good friends, and so I'm really having a good time. I didn't think that I'd have such a great time after my twin left, you know, but I found out that not only does God have a purpose, he has a plan behind that purpose.
Right.
And when you find out what that purpose is, one thing, he wants you to have fun and live a good life and enjoy
Come
yourself
on,
and
say that again.
stress off and run a little bit and eat and talk to friends. I really kind of appreciated the lockdown because I can talk to everybody because I know they're home.
You could catch them now, right?
When you call it, you can't say, are you at home? But everybody's home, everybody's cooking at home. It's good. Cook your own food, prepare your food. You know what it's going to taste like. Families sit down and eat together. That's a wonderful thing.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes,
so
it is.
you get a chance to know your friends better. And so I've learned a lot during this time. But
Right.
whenever we can be released, so to say, it's going to be good.
You hear that, Max?
Yep, come on out.
Now I
Come
know.
on, Reggie.
Tell Abe Laboriel to just leave me one song. That's
He will. Abraham's a fan of yours, and by the way, he did tell me that he'll do your show.
Oh,
He'll
thank
do an
you.
interview.
Thank you.
I talked to him last night.
Oh, how's he doing?
He's doing great.
That's good.
I'm going to do, you know, I film my church services here at my house in the kitchen. So that's where I am right now.
Okay.
And what's that song I'm doing, Robin? I'm doing Distractions. Remember that, Max?
No.
Distractions, here we go again.
Which
Yes.
I'm doing that.
Yeah,
What's
man.
I'm doing Handwriting on the Wall.
Oh, I love
I'm doing it
that.
today. Yeah. And that's, I love that. That's a really good performance. That was live in London. Remember that, Max?
Handwriting was actually in the studio. It was Jerry Peters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well, were there
what
two
did-
handwritings? Because the one I loved was the handwriting I loved was on the one with Hollywood Scene and Don't Give
That's
Up.
it. That's the same album. It's the Warner Brothers album.
yeah.
Can't you read the handwriting on the wall?
that record was so funky that my mother used to look at me and go, "That don't sound like gospel. Who is that?" And I say, "Ma, it's gospel, ma. It's Andre Crouch."
That's what Raphael Sadiq told me, the same thing. They wouldn't let him listen to anything but Christian music, and they thought, no, that's gone too far.
Yeah.
But that was David Williams on guitar, who did all the Michael Jackson records. But the handwriting was cut in 1980, and I think Off the Wall was in 1983 or something. So, or 84. This was kind of ahead of Michael. Andre was always ahead. He just he had no boundaries as far as his songwriting and places he could go musically. He was limitless. A lot of people, you say they have a style and that's their niche. Andre, he loved all kinds of music and he loved all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And he absorbed it and it came out of him. It was a gift. God just poured a gift out on him. I've never seen.
Yeah, Andre, and Sister Sandra shared with me, I feel like calling Sandra auntie for some reason, because I just always felt
He gets called that.
I always felt like you and Andre were my family as much as I listened to y'all records.
Well, let's keep it like that.
Okay, man. Good.
Hey,
That's what we're gonna do.
it starts today.
Yeah, Auntie was talking to me the other day, and she was talking about Andre's gift for finding singers. That was interesting. Like, a lot of artists are always, these days, artists are looking for like the choppiest, hottest, craziest musicians because they want their band to be so dope. But she said Andre's thing was he could always find a good singer. You want to elaborate more on that, Auntie?
Well, see, when Andre we would go in the studio, and I remember we were in the studio with Michael Jackson, and I used to say, we got to keep the time, but Andre, what's the time, studio time? And he'd get around the piano with different ones, and he'd say, hey, I got an idea. And so Michael said, are we going to start soon? And Andre would start writing a song. I remember when they did To God Be the Glory, and Max was in the studio, and Andre was writing with I was at home with my dad, and Andre was writing. He said, I think it was To God Be the Glory. And he said, can you come down to the studio? Andre is just doing another song, and we can't get him to finish this. And I said, it was about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I'm on my way. And I walked in and I said, Andre, you got to finish this song first, and then you go. But if he had a good voice, he wrote around voices, He also could sing this, they could sing that. He did that from the time we had a teenage group. It's called the Kojic, stands for Church of God in Christ Singers.
Okay.
Billy Preston, Edna Wright, Blinky Williams, myself, Frankie Springs, and we were just
Gloria Jones.
Gloria Jones. And we all sang together. So when he found someone like Gloria Jones, her dad was a preacher, pastor, and Edna Wright, and they could sing all day long. And Andre would just write around those voices.
That's incredible.
Yes.
That is incredible. And when did I guess, I don't know, he always to me just had the best singers. I mean, you, Danniebelle,
Yes.
what was it, Howard Smith, I believe?
Howard is magical.
Fantastic singer.
I was like, where is he finding these voices? Like, do they all live on the same block? I was like,
all over the world.
Concerts, we would go to concerts and someone would say, you got to hear this person. You got to. That's how he found like Crystal Merton and Howard Smith, found the Winans. They, came to a concert. They said, Howard Smith said, you got to hear my friends, because Howard sang with the group. And he said, you got to hear them. And so the voices just came to him. He said, Sandra, I just heard this group and you'll love them. Just different voices. And he said, ooh, they could sing this song. And you give Andre a good song and some fried chicken, and he'll write all night.
You know what I'm saying? That's why I knew we were family, because something told me y'all liked fried chicken. I don't know what it was.
Andre he could cook some too.
And see now speaking of Crystal Merton, Sandra Crouch, Andre Crouch, and Bill Maxwell, let's take a quick listen to one of the most beautiful songs ever written.
Though we're far apart, you're in my heart. And there you'll always stay till we meet again someday. I'll be thinking of you.
I'll be praying for you, praying all your hopes and dreams, that they will come true. And should there be some rain, I know the sun will shine again, 'cause I'll be praying for you. Ooh, ooh, ooh,
And if you have a problem, don't ever let it get you down. Just remember, He's always
and I hope your tomorrows, they will always do you well. If there's a pain in your heart, don't be afraid. Tell me, tell me, I'll be praying. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. I'll be praying for you. When I return.
I'll be thinking of you. Oh, I'll be praying. Getting on my knees and asking God to bless you. I'll be praying for you. I'll be praying for you. I'll be praying for you. I'll be praying I'll be looking for you day and night. I'll be praying, praying, praying. I'll be praying for you. I'll go to the throne of God for you. I'll be praying and I'll ask Him, what do you need me to do? And I will.
But yeah, I remember this session very well because Harlan Rogers arranged that. And that's Harlan playing acoustic piano. Leland Sklar is playing bass. I think it's the only session he ever played on for Andre.
That's Lee.
That's Lee Sklar on bass. And the two guitar players we had on the session were Dean Parks and Larry Carlton. And Joe Samples on Fender Rhodes.
Yeah.
And Hadley overdubbed all those guitar intros. Those are Hadley's ideas. And Hadley, all those twin guitars, that's Hadley Hawkins-Smith.
Who's playing that Hawaiian? Who is doing that?
Hadley.
Oh my God.
Hadley. Lennart Schuholm did the strings.
Yes.
We recorded those in London. Backgrounds, we did the whole project was at Paramount Recording Studio. Track was cut at Hollywood Sound, where Earth, Wind & Fire used to work in Prince. And then we did all the overdubs at Paramount.
Wow.
And that's, we brought Crystal, was 21 or 22 years old. and that was the first time she'd ever recorded, and I don't think she's ever sounded better.
No,
It just
no.
it was like one take or something with her. And I do remember this. Sandra would have tested this with Andre. We're trying to mix it, and this is in the days before automation. So I'm helping the engineer, and I'm running Andre's vocal, and he's trying to grab my hand to turn himself down because he doesn't like his voice. And I'm trying to slap his hand off, and I'm making sure his voice is loud enough. And then I'm running Crystal, and then he's trying to turn it up because he wants her. He hated his own voice. He'd rather anybody sing with him, and I just loved his voice. So I remember in the mix, when we finished, he said, "I like everything, but my voice is just too loud."
Right.
Yeah, that's Andre, right, Sandra?
That's right. He always wanted to push somebody else's voice. I said, Andre, I love your voice. But you know, one time he said, I hate my voice.
Oh.
And he said, I don't want to sing anymore. And guess what? He couldn't sing for a month.
Wait, what happened?
For a whole, he said, I don't like my voice. And I said, okay, keep saying that. And he woke up and he I said, I bet you whatever. I'm sorry, God. Please give me my voice back.
Said, I bet you won't say that again. So that's good. So you and him had some great rival brother and sister twins.
She helped him.
Who came out first, Sandra, Auntie? You or Andre?
He came out a half an hour first, but he was 10 years younger than me.
It progressed. It started with 2 years younger, then it went to about 20.
The last album that I did, my mother passed. She passed. We were rehearsing on that Friday, and we were going on that Wednesday, I think. We were going to record on that Friday and Saturday. And she passed on that day, and my dad said, you got to record. I said, Daddy, I can't do it. And he said, well, give yourself a couple of weeks. And after 2 weeks, we went back and cut the album, and it was just, it was really wonderful.
He's worthy, God's worthy, Almighty Creator, Alpha, Omega, beginning and the end. Holy, holy, Lord God Almighty.
How did the arrangement of that song come about?
What? That's just how I wrote. I don't know. I mean, you know, I just wrote the way, you know, because Andre and I, you know, didn't read music. It's just the inspiration of the Lord, you know, and the melodies would come, and I would call Andre. He would always call me and say, "What do you think of this song?" I said, "I love it. I love that song." He said, "You sure?" And I would call out. I was so afraid because, you know, Andre was such a prolific writer, and I was afraid to play my music to him. And the first recording, I didn't even want him to hear it. He said, "I haven't even gone to your rehearsal." I said, "Oh, I'm so scared." I said, "Well, you gonna like it?" He said, he just started crying. He said, "I love that song." I said, but he encouraged me all. He said, "You can do it. You can do it." And I go, "I can't do that." But he helped me all. I mean, all the time. That's the way, because we were like this.
Right.
One of Andre's biggest songs to me, or the most pertinent for right now, "We Need to Hear From You," is Sandra's song. Everybody thinks Andre wrote it, but that's Sandra's song.
Yeah.
And it's exactly appropriate for what's happening. She was prophetic then in 1981 or 82 when we recorded that song. So what we're dealing with 38 years ago, she was prophetic then.
I think that's really the only
Well,
one.
she wrote the verses to "Jesus Is the Answer."
Yeah.
If you have some reflections of discouragement and joy, she wrote that. She always helped. You know, Andre would come in with things not always together, and she would help him. We would all try to help him, but he fed off of Sandra greatly, you know, and that was because Andre sometimes didn't know. He had no idea when something was great.
Yeah.
Or you think he didn't know, or he just, I don't know.
He didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't know. Andre didn't think, you know, he was not about himself.
He just said, "What do you think?" I said, "I love it." And you know, I'm on my assistant. I'm on her laptop, and it keeps saying Robin Hill, but it says on my face it says Robin Hill. Whoever is doing that.
Over here it doesn't. So I just see you.
Over here, it's weird when they touch.
Yeah, it says it here too.
Robin, I said, "Robin, did get your name?"
And I think Andre has a question for you too, Bill. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I had a question for both of you about I know the business model of today and how things work, but I want you to probably explain a little bit about how publishing was worked back in the day, like in the 70s and the 80s. So when you wrote a song, did you have to give part of it to the record company, or did the record company just own the masters, or did you own the masters? How did it work between all of you?
Do you want to take that, Sandra, or do you want me to do it?
You take it, you'll be a little softer.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw the Clark Sisters movie, you know, when
it's gangster.
Yeah, when Twinkie sold her song for a car. One of Andre's biggest songs, he sold to a guy, the company I think was Man of Music. The song was "Through It All." I mean, the story, he was with the guy, and he had a brand new house. He said, "Andre, this song bought me my house." And Andre said, "Well, where's my house?"
Oh, shoot.
And so in the beginning, the way it worked, we would get a budget to do an album, say, and it wasn't much. I think Take Me Back album was a $35,000 budget, and that's putting horns and strings. And the only way we could do it is the fact that the singers, Perry and Billy and Sandra and Danniebelle, were royalty participants, because we wouldn't have had the money to pay the singers to do the sessions. Right. And with that budget, I had to get at least 2 songs cut every 3 hours. You know, so within 3 days, I cut all the tracks on an album. With double six. So we took first, second takes, third take. We didn't have in the beginning.
Wow.
And the record company got the publishing. Lexicon Music was Light Records publishing company. They were honest, you know, publisher. And what they said was, and in that day, it was true. Print music was a big thing. Choral print music. Andre's songs were hymns, and they could get them in songbooks all over the world, and Andre would get paid off of that. And he didn't have the ability to do that. But as Andre got bigger, then they worked a split publishing deal where it was Crouch Music and then Lexicon, and then they got a better deal where it all reverted back to Crouch Music. Right. And the record production, the company owned the masters. We never got the masters. If you spent $35,000 or $40,000 on an album, and you would say get a percentage of 10%, I'm just using a number, you had to recoup the cost of that album back before you received any royalties. And so before Andre could make any money, or Sandra could make any money, or I could get any producer's money, we had to pay back all the expenses. I think even including the album cover. So that's the way it worked back then. We didn't own the masters, and then the Lexicon Light Records went bankrupt, and then it went through several owners, and none of us got paid for a long period of time. Now a better company has taken it over. But in general, what you did, what almost any artist did, you don't get paid for it later on, because if it'll cost you $10,000 to $50,000 to collect $5,000 with attorney fees.
Wow.
And it's just, you look at it, I look back on it now. Yeah, I don't have that house either, Andre, but we were able to spread the gospel. And this music is still alive, and I'm thankful for that. It's not just music business. This is about changing lives. Sandra's pastoring a church, but it hardly has any, the people don't have money that go there, support community. She gives her life for these people. That's what this is about for us, really.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what I was born to do, and that's lead people to Jesus. And I remember my great uncle, it's my dad's uncle. His name was Bishop Samuel Crouch. He was a bishop in the Church of God in Christ, and he had cancer, and he was just about transitioning. And he called for Andre and I to pray for us, and he told us, he said, "Don't ever sell out." He said, "Don't sell out." He said, "Your music will be known around the world, but don't sell out." And I remembered that, and we never have. It's what I do is for the Lord, and until he comes and says my job is over. I love to, anybody that comes to my house, if it's the gardener, or if they're doing something, I tell them about Jesus. I'll fix them something to eat, and I'll say, let me tell you a story. There were some people coming, working on, doing my garden and fixing the whole yard up. And I was just witnessing to them and just talking to them. They said, and they were Spanish, and I was trying to speak as much Spanish. I said, "You said, habla Cristo su corazón," and he was going. I said, "Jesus, heart," and his wife spoke better English, and so I led them to the Lord. And I said, "I'd like for you to come to my church." And they said, "Oh, we can understand God the way you talk about God. You don't make us feel bad." So they came to church. They got there before I did, just before the service started. When I walked in and they saw me walking the pulpit, they said, "What is she walking in the pulpit? Is she the priest?" I never told them I was a pastor of the church. I just said, "I want you to come to my church." And I bought them a Bible, but the Lord told me when they came, he said, "You're going to lead them to me."
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Just being kind, just being loving. How you doing? And he had a grandson, and I said, "What does your grandson do?" He said, "He likes to play drums." I bought him a little drums set for Christmas, and I bought the family a big basket, and they just cried. See, I believe that if we show the love of Christ, we don't really have to just bam it down their throat. If we show them that, they're going to come to Jesus.
That's
Amen.
right. That's right.
Your life is preaching. If I don't have to preach this way, I preach by how I live. How I preach.
Absolutely. A lot of people have the misconception that people that are successful in music are always really successful and wealthy because of the music that they created, and they don't understand that it's more of a labor of love, in gospel music, and that you've done it because that's what you're ordained to do, and this is your mission. So I'm glad you really explained that, because people think, oh, there's millions of dollars everywhere because you're a quote unquote gospel star.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that I like what the Bible says. Even if you make, I'm not quoting it but he gives seed soil. I have a garden, and when I have put that seed in the ground, I expect a harvest. Now, God can bless you. I mean, if you sow your seed in the right, and you have to prepare the soil, because I got special soil and it was treated special for the seed that I was putting in there. And if you give your life to Jesus Christ, God will give you, it might be money, it might be good health, it might be influence, it might be not an impression. I don't want to make an impression. Influence. I want to make an impression on the heart. People said, what are you going to do with the economy like this? I said, I'm going to trust God.
Amen.
You don't know. I said, I'm going to trust God. You think I'm going to worry? Wake up and worry, go to sleep and worry. I'm going to have fun. I laugh more now than I ever have in my life. Because I just feel like, well, I'm not going to talk about the White House right now, but anyway.
Right.
I don't blame you.
Well,
but if you sow a seed and I don't sow a seed and say, I don't know what that's going to be. When I put squash down, I know I'm getting squash. When I put celery down, I know I'm getting celery. When I put potatoes down, I know I'm getting potatoes. You name what you said, Lord, I want you to bless my community. I'm praying that I can be a influence with young people. And you know what music that I really like? I love rap music. I mean, when the kids, they said, you don't like, I said, yes. I don't know. Some seems like God is twisting my brain. I got a oh my God, I'm going nuts. But it's just that God will use that for his glory.
Yeah.
With his son, and they do all that rap music. And I said, he didn't know I played the tambourine. I said, let me take my tambourine out and show you some beats. He went, what? I said, that came from church, sweetie.
Andre Crouch.
Jesus is Lord. There are so many people who have walked this earth. Think if they know the truth. So they often criticize the way I believe. And they say, Andre, tell me, where is your proof? I tell them Jesus was wounded for my transgression. And he was bruised for my iniquity. They're gonna know that it's true. They're gonna know that it's true. Oh yes. They've got to know that it's true. They gotta know that it's true. Oh yes. Oh, that Jesus, he was sent from the Father. He's a great Messiah. He's bread for the hungry. And he's water for the thirsty. He's a friend to the friendless. And he's hope for the hopeless. He rose from the dead. Just like he said, he shall bow. Every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord. You know they're gonna find out. Jesus is Lord. Every knee shall bow. Every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord. You know they're gonna find out. Jesus is Lord. He walked upon the water. Yes, he did. And this same Jesus, you know, he calmed the raging sea. He healed a man that was lame one day. And from sinking sand, he so lifted me. But still he was wounded for my transgression. And he was bruised for my iniquity. They're gonna know that it's true. You're gonna know that it's true. He's bread for the hungry, and he's water for the thirsty. He's a friend to the friendless, and he's hope for the hopeless. He rules the land, just like he's headed, and release your life. You know they're gonna find out. Every knee is so gonna bow, every tongue must confess that Jesus is Lord. 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 I know He is. Jesus is Lord. He's the Lord of Lords. Everybody clap your hands if you believe it. Let me hear you sing it. Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord. Gentile and Jew, that includes me and you. The Bible says we're gonna bow down, bow down. We're gonna bow down. Everybody's gonna bow down. We're gonna bow down. Everybody's gonna bow down. We're gonna bow down. Everybody's gonna bow down. Bow down. Everybody's going to know it. Everybody's gonna know it. Everybody's gonna know it. Gonna have to say, Jesus is Lord. Woo! Jesus is Lord. I know He is. I said He is. Jesus is Lord. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord. That Jesus is Lord. Every knee is so gonna bow, every tongue must confess that Jesus is Lord. And everybody's gonna know it. Oh yeah.
She found it. And I'll tell you something else. I needed her because on that vamp, I had gallstones and I had a gallbladder attack.
What?
And I couldn't, I was bent over and I played with one hand the whole vamp.
Wait.
And
You playing that song?
the vamp.
Bent
the
over
vamp.
with one hand.
Yeah, I
The
was
vamp.
bent over playing because I knew it was working. And I played it with one hand and Sandra bailed me out. I went right from there to Kaiser Hospital and got an injection to stop my liver from swelling. I had gallstones. Finally, I had to have it taken out. But Sandra bailed me out. That tambourine is providing the backbeat. I couldn't do it.
Man, that tambourine is so killing. And the mix, who mixed that record? Was that you, Max?
Well, I mean, as far as determining the volume, it was me and Andre, yeah. We had Gordon Shryock was our engineer, but Gordon was more of not in any way diminishing his what he did, but we didn't allow him to run the levels of how things were. We kind of did that, and we would play around with different things. I'm hearing it back now. I'm reminded of Steve Tavoloni, the great saxophone player, the one who arranged those horns. It's just Steve Tavoloni and Alan Gregory, the trumpet player, and they stacked them and did the little things, and they did a really good job.
Oh, that's an understatement. Really good job. I mean, for all the instrumentation that's happening on that record, man, it's amazing how everybody, from the tambourine to the horns to the strings, and then Andre's voice is so lush, and I hear Sandra all over it. Andre's voice is so lush. He's not like one of those, a lot of guys today want to, for lack of I'll just say, like, want to sing more high alto and soprano. And Andre always stayed where he is, and you still felt the energy, you still felt the passion, you felt the sincerity, you could feel his heart. and his emotions through his singing, and he had dynamic range within what he stayed true to his range and still had dynamic development within that, which was incredible to me.
And his pitch was just always good.
Always
Always really good. But yeah, Andre he didn't like his voice, and he's one of the best singers I've ever heard.
Absolutely.
I don't get it, because singing is communication, and he communicated those words.
Yeah, man. So there's a couple of questions that are up here on the YouTube channel, and people even texting me some questions, and it's
Okay.
Andre needs a show. The Crouch family needs a show by themselves. But Bill, I know I wanted to get to. I put up posts and ads about Andre Crouch and then the Winans. So people are also asking some questions about when did the Winans. Now how I heard it was Andre discovered the Winans. Was that true?
Well, Sandra had it right. We were playing in Detroit, and Andre had heard Howard Smith. He was in a group called the Testimonial Singers, which was the Winans. Michael Winans was not in that group. It was Marvin and Carvin and Ronald and Howard Smith. And Howard Smith decided to leave. And I don't know how he got in touch with Andre, but Andre fell in love with Howard's voice, and who wouldn't? And I remember distinctly, like Sandra said, we were on the bus, and they came on the bus to meet us. We had played. I'm going to go back off on this thing because get into a racial subject. Marvin told me he came to see us at the Ford Auditorium in Detroit, and he went up to sit where black people always sit in the balcony, and there was white people up there. And he said, "What are these white people doing in my seats?" and then he looked and he saw black people sitting down below, and he'd never been to a place where black people and white people all sat together. And then he looked at the stage and he saw the group, and he saw me and Fletch up there with black, and he'd never really been to an integrated situation equal. And it blew his mind. And he came on the bus and they gave us a tape. And that's how, and Andre took the tape back to Light Records. I just got a job working on Light Records, and we said, "You better sign anybody with a Winan name."
Wow.
All the way down, Mama, Papa, all the way down, because they got something. And they were signed under the Crouch production umbrella of Light Records.
There it is, everybody. Y'all heard it. It is the truth. Andre Crouch and the Crouch and Sandra. I have to, I feel like you guys are responsible for 60-70% of why gospel is what it is. I mean, we have James Cleveland and others that were, kind of before you guys, but y'all took gospel, contemporary gospel, let's put it that way, modern gospel. It starts and ends with Andre Crouch, Bill Maxwell.
It was integrated music, which
integrated.
I grew up with integrated music. James Brown had white guys in his band. R&B was integrated. It's not now, but we were an integrated group, and because God is an integrated God, He created all of us. And he loves all of us, and there should be no prejudice towards anybody. And right. Andre felt that way. Andre loved everybody. Andre was very sensitive to his Latino roots. He spoke Spanish, and he loved Latino. Sandra's as a Latin community where the church is. So we serve a multi-dimensional God, and that's what we believe. That's what we always preach, and the audiences were like that. Black gospel and white gospel was segregated until Andre.
That's right.
Which is probably why this song came about. I'll play a little bit of it, and we'll move forward to this. Man, this week Andre needs a show by itself. I'm sorry.
It will always always will, always divide you. Remember, there's no hatred in Christ. So don't let jealousy be among you. But it will always will divide you. Remember, there's no jealousy in Christ. Hit it. Oh no, there is no hatred in Don't let it divide you. The hatred, it always will. It always will divide you. Remember, there's no hatred. No. There's no jealousy. No jealousy. Let the same spirit that is in Christ Jesus. The same spirit in Christ Jesus. Let it be in you. God said it. That's the only way that we will see a change. Sweet spirit. God wants us to have a sweet spirit in Christ Jesus. Got to have it. Let it be in you. God said, we need the same spirit that is in Christ Jesus. To know, let it be in you. Let it be in you. That's the only way to see a change. Sweet spirit. God wants us to have a sweet spirit in Christ Jesus. Let it be. Let it come from Jesus. Be in you. Be in you.
If there's confusion with your brother, show him some love before the sun goes down. It will glorify the Father as you spread His love around. If there's confusion with your brother, you gotta show him love before the sun goes down.
Before the sun goes down, it will glorify the Father. And you spread it all around.
With your brother,
You gotta show him love before the sun goes down. It will glorify the Father as you spread.
I was. I still talk to him every day, so I just don't sing, but I talk to him all the time, you know. So it's just a little short time of separation, and then
Right.
we'll be together again. So I have to complete my assignment, then I'm out of here.
Right. Right.
Listen, I gotta put. I do the service, my Sunday service here at the house, and so I have two people that are helping me, and they're telling me I have to go. So I enjoyed being with you, fine gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Max, you know how much I love you.
Yeah, you're my sister. I love you, Sandra, and I'll call you when I get back.
He's the best guy. Max is the best guy. One thing I can say, when my brother closed his eyes, Bill Maxwell, Perry Morgan, and Billy Thetford texts me every day since my brother left. Every day he sends it, but it's always crazy stuff, you know. He'll text me something to make me laugh, you know. So everybody has just kept up with me and just love me, and so I'm just really happy and pleased.
So give us some. What's your church website, or how can people hear your live streams?
It's newchristmemorialchurch.org, and it comes on at 11:15 on Facebook on Sunday morning.
Okay.
And,
Pacific time.
huh?
Pacific time.
Pacific time, yes.
Yeah, I love you, Sandra.
Okay. Love you.
You make music, all of you, and share the music. God's got so much music in you. Just share it, and the world is going to change. He's given us an opportunity to make it right. So you guys, you never, when you get a certain age, you say, well, I don't have any more to give. If your thing is that you can't play or you can't sing, you can sure share your voice, your stories, and that's what the young people need to hear.
Yes, and that's what this is. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Yes, I'll give you a call. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. See you, Max. See you guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So I love her.
Incredible.
I love her.
That was my little surprise for you.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I knew it would be.
When you went into churches, were people like kind of like feeling it, or they were like, is this gospel? Did they really like kind of like reject it, or how was the feeling when you guys performed it, or the consensus on the streets, as they would say?
Yeah, were you getting a lot of flack? Like, oh no.
Oh yeah. I mean, but there was no rules. You know, you might go into a white church in the South, and you think they're not going to like this at all, and the people were so receptive. And then I remember playing a big black church in Milwaukee with the Hawkins family, and they didn't like Andre at all. Wow. Because he wasn't traditional gospel enough for them. Because for them, gospel was a style of music. For Andre, it's a message. Andre was always, I don't care what kind of music I do as long as the message is right. I like all kinds of music. So we didn't make traditional gospel records. There was gospel style songs on each record maybe, but we were broad musically. I didn't come from church gospel music. I came from playing pop and jazz and R&B and rock and roll.
And the blues.
And I kind of put that in with Andre. And that's what he liked. So, but I remember the church that I go to now, the pastor of that church was from this church. It was in Modesto, California, and it was a small church. And we went in, and our opening band with Harlan and Hadley and Fletch Wiley and myself, Harlan was one of the great organ bass players of all time. He was, you know, I mean, his left-handed bass was like a Motown guy, and he could play bebop, and it was Jimmy Smith, but I mean, unbelievable technique. And we would do some songs that feature that. They wanted to kill us at this church. I mean, they wanted to kill us. And Andre had to go out, and like after we played, they were just like, you know, like these guys are the devil have come in here. And Andre had to sing some hymns to calm them down. And then we started playing, but the church got in a big disagreement over it, and it split. Wow. And maybe 10 years later, Howard McCrary asked me to go to Modesto and play in this huge church. And they said this was the church from the split. This is what happened when the church split. Growth came because people were able to accept and minister to all kinds of people and see things. And you guys brought in here, and you brought about that change. But yeah, we've been in places where they said, well, you can come, Andre, but the drummer can't come.
What?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning,
wait. True story. and some of my friends in the church I grew up in are actually listening to this. I got a couple of text messages. I grew up in the church that the pastor didn't want no drums in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
But you know, with Andre, I remember one night I went with him. We played the Sydney Opera House. It sold out for 2 nights in a row, and then a week later, we're playing in a banana shed in Tahiti. I'm sorry, in Tonga, with no electricity, singing through pig noses with batteries, trying to, you know, for the locals. You didn't know what you were going to be doing. It was, you know, it was a ministry.
Yeah.
So when you guys got to, it definitely was. And I think, so the Winans as a family couldn't be a better fit because they could write, they could sing, they stuck to the message. I'm not sure of who wrote most of the songs. I would say probably Marvin, right? And your contemporary music, it was an easy transition because it's kind of like, although Andre had all of these hits and great records and won all of these Grammys, and congratulations, by the way, to you on that as well. You know, that's big. You start as a drummer. You know, I was telling people, I'm jumping around a little bit. I was telling people about you and about this coming up. And I was saying how much I learned about you. And when you were telling me you were playing on the street at a mission for Winos, and I said, wow, it's interesting how you went from playing for Winos to producing the Winans. So, you know, I there's a lot of purpose in that, right? Which actually brings me to actually wanting to play some of the Winans. So did you produce the first 4 albums?
The first 3. I'll tell you a quick story before you play. The Winans were an easy thing for me to be involved in because I loved R&B music and I love Motown. Absolutely. And I saw them as like a group like the Temptations, where you had a guy that sang falsetto, and you had someone who could sing bass, and they were a quartet kind of thing. And I thought, if I put R&B funk behind these guys with the message of what they're doing, this is going to be really fun. It's going to be good. And because they were not as contemporary when you heard the demos in the church, they were not this. We brought in David Williams and Abraham and Alex Acuna and Harlan and different people, and we treated it as an R&B record.
There's so much. Okay, we all probably have a bunch of questions about this production. First of all, I want to say the mixing was magical. If you listen to this song with headphones on, you hear when the mix dries up, you hear when the mix gets wet, you hear things that you won't hear if you don't have headphones on. The mix is incredible. I have one question though. Well, I have a bunch of questions, but before I release this to Andre, because I know he has something he wants. Hold on to your thought, Andre. Hold on to it.
All right.
This is for all the drummers out there. What snare drum were you using on that record? Is that your question, Andre?
It's a Ludwig 6.5-inch Black Beauty. It was actually the first drum I ever got close to free from a music store that wanted to endorse me. So 1974, 1975, 6.5 by 14 Ludwig black brass snare drum.
That was my question. My question was, your drums always sounded consistent. I was wondering, like, was it the same drums you were using, or it was different drums?
Pretty much. You know, I like that snare drum. Later I started using a higher pitch snare drum on more things. I think at that time I was endorsing Pearl, and the Pearl those Pearls were made in Nashville, and they were really good sounding. And I wasn't one of those guys. I told Reggie this earlier, that had 20 drum sets and 100 cymbals and snare drums. I kind of had my sound, and I wasn't out to be a session drummer that would do whatever that they were hearing. I just kind of did what I did, and that's what they were.
It was incredible, and it's always consistent. We always knew it was you playing. I don't know how you did it, but we always knew.
That snare drum sound like you had 12 pillows in it.
Yeah, I don't know. I
That
probably
sucker
baffled
was
it down a little bit.
fat but see, Bill, I don't know if you know, I mean, that's what everybody's been trying to do the past 5 years. They detuning snares, they're doing double snares. They want the deep. I mean, they had the little piccolo snare phase back in maybe like early 90s, would you say, Andre?
Yep.
But lately,
Late 80s, 90s, yep.
is everyone's trying to detune the snare to get a tight, deep snare.
Yeah, I wanted it big, but still have the snares, but also have some crackle with it too, so that it would stick out. And
Did you use one mic or two, top bottom?
usually two.
Yeah.
Usually like an SM57 on the top, along with some type of a dynamic mic or a brighter mic, maybe an AKG. So you had the fatness of the 57, you had an AKG, and then they have a bottom mic, and they pick up the snare sound.
What about the hi-hat?
I had a separate mic on the hi-hat.
But what kind of hi-hats were those?
Those are, I think that was before I started endorsing Sabian. I think those were Zildjians. I started endorsing Sabians, and right about 82, I think I started playing Sabians, but those were that. The funny thing that makes me crack up now when I hear that is I left this break in there with nothing going on. And I just said to Steve Tavloni, just play something as fast as you can and fill out those bars. I don't care what you play. You don't have to be in time. Just do something. And he played it, and it made me laugh. And it still makes me laugh. And Marvin, when he took a rough mix of it back and he played it for his dad, he said they called his dad Skeeter, Pop Winans, not Skeeter. I can't even remember what his nickname was. Said he ran down and pulled out his old saxophone and said, I'm going to start playing again.
Because that break, when I first heard that record, I was like, who put a bebop line? I felt like it was a bebop line in a record, a gospel record. I was like, oh my gosh. I couldn't believe it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it still cracks me. I had the same reaction. It made me smile, made me laugh when he did it. And we had, as you can tell, if you listen to that, there was a lot of joy in those sessions. It wasn't that picked over. I put those guys in a booth, and they sang live with the tracks. And then I replaced what they did, but we played to them. Especially the first album, I had something to do, and I went back and was revisiting those masters, and I took their vocals out, and it was amazing how everything was just fit around them. When you took them out, it wasn't that much going on. It was with it all came. It was, we really played to them.
Yeah.
Where'd you guys record this at?
That was recorded at Paramount. Not Paramount Pictures, but Paramount Recording Studio, which was a place that we kind of kept booked for a couple of 3 years. Lockdown all the time.
Yeah, some of these albums you were doing like double. Like I looked at some of these dates, right, and I don't remember which albums they were, but you had a record with the Winans and a big, huge record with the Winans and Andre Crouch in the same year. You remember?
Yeah, and Crystal.
And Crystal Murdered.
Yeah.
And
Keith Green.
I'm sure. Here's another classic. I want to talk a little bit. Who's on the piano on Question Is that Harlan?
No, it's Tom Keane, excellent musician.
Now, is this the record that Greg Philligaines is on as well, right?
No, Greg isn't on the Winans records that I did. Greg is on Crystals.
Oh, right.
And he's on Andre's.
Right.
But he's playing synth on Handwriting on the Wall.
Let's check out how beautiful. Let's check out a piece of this. We got so much music.
Tom Keane, he has some oboe, John Phillips.
Question is, will I ever leave you? The answer is no, 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 no. Question is, will I ever leave? Let me tell you why I love the Lord. He's so dear to me. Oh, he died that I might be free. I was asked this question years ago, and the answer is still no. Now the question is, will I do his will? And the answer is yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Anybody out there know what I'm talking about? Say the question is, will I do his will? And the answer is yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm presenting my body, living sacrifice. All I ever want to do is to kneel and cry. I was asked this question, and the answer is yeah. Now the question is, when will Jesus return? Somebody help me say, soon, 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 soon. Yeah, so soon. Look at the trouble all over the world. I'm telling every man, woman, boy, and girl, Jesus is coming through. So soon. Yeah, yeah. Soon.
22 when he sang that vocal.
Wow.
What was interesting, and I'm sure you found this too, when you were recording, well, you probably heard it on the tapes. They sound like instruments when they sing.
Yes.
It sounds like music accompanying music. And Marvin is so magical with his vocal play, with what he does and his different articulations with his voice. And you guys laid such a well, by then you were doing studio sessions together, what? By the time that session came around, a good 10 years?
That was in 1980, maybe 79 or 80.
Yeah, 81.
So I'd had 7 or 8 years of working in LA, and a lot of that vocal. You know, I told you I would put the Winans in a booth, and we'd play live to them.
Mm-hmm.
But most of that vocal was Marvin's live vocal with the band. It was so because he fed off of us,
Mm-hmm.
and we fed off of him, and I just kept it. I replaced the background vocals.
Wow.
But that was Marvin live. He was a live singer. Carvin, he needed to plan what he was going to do, and he would work on it and get it. Marvin just came out and sang. You could hardly punch him in because he would be different level, and he'd be a different positioning on the mic. So you kind of just let Marvin go.
You know, sometimes you leave the studio and it was a good session, it's good stuff. But then there's always like one of those a few songs that just stays. You know, the rough mix just stays on repeat.
I knew. I don't always know, but I knew the question was going to be big.
Right.
Because it had you in the first word.
Right.
Question is, no. It was over. Yeah. I knew that one.
Right. It was over.
Yeah, I knew that one, and I knew Tomorrow, because Tomorrow was different than anything they'd ever done, and I liked the message of it, and I felt that it was a song that didn't feel like a verse, chorus, bridge. It just felt like a complete thought to me.
Right.
And I felt that. Other ones, I don't know. I don't think that I appreciated Trust in God as much then as I do now.
Right.
Because now I hear it, and Everything He Touches a song. I knew that it meant something to me because it was being said in a way I'd never heard it before. That whatever you do, it's a song, it's a melody, and God speaks in melodies, and I mean, I have known from my conversations with the Lord and understanding things that the earth was made mathematically and it's made with rhythms. And God is the master of all rhythms and harmonies and melody. And I know that but I'd never heard a song kind of put it like that, a lion or this or that animal. But in the way, yet it was entertaining, but it was serious and it was beautiful and very simple
Right.
in the way that they so. But yeah, I just know that I never had more fun on any sessions than I did with the Winans because we work fast.
Wow.
I don't like to play the same song for 9 hours. You know, I've done sessions for other people where you go in, you spend a whole day on the drum sound,
Right.
and you go back the next day and you're there all day and you break and then you maybe get one track and it goes for 2 weeks and it just feels laborious to me.
Right.
We were kicking, you know, they were singing, we were playing, and we were doing live records pretty much. And I just would take what we did live and add to it.
That, which leads me to this question: what, in general, then and now, what does it take for a hit record?
Well, there's a lot of different philosophies. Obviously, you have to have a great song. You have to have a great song that speaks to multiple people. And then, of course, it has to be promoted. They have to have people that can get it to where you can hear it and be it available for you to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a good artist to do it that is relatable to people. I am a little bothered, and I'm sure that my kids and other people say I'm just old, that we're letting machines control the music.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that if you're living in Helsinki, Finland, or if you're living in Jamaica, you got the same drum sounds, you got the same bass sound, you got the same box. You're putting it in there. You're correcting it. Everybody's pitch correcting their vocals. They're using the machines to control it, and then it dates itself in 5 years because the machines have changed. But a saxophone doesn't change. A bass doesn't change. A piano is still a piano. Drums are still drums. Singers are singers. I like microphones. I like real instruments. I like people writing. I like people singing. I like breaths. People will try to get their breaths out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've done sessions for people and they say, there's something wrong with your drum part. And I said, what do you mean? The hi-hat's not going tick, 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 because they're used to a machine being the same level and just doing that all the time.
Right.
Well, I'm not a machine. I don't play that. So I don't like taking the people out of the music. Because the way I'm from Oklahoma, I think I talk different than somebody from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think musicians should show their style and their singers should show their style and the horns and all that. That's what I love about music. I didn't ever start music to be left in a room alone with a machine.
Right.
And because you can do so much. So that being said, Billie Eilish should see huge records being done in the house with her brother in the machine. And that's fine. That's just not what I'm not going to do that. I did it for a while when I was doing television. I did Martin and Jamie Foxx, and I was in the room with the machines, and that was fine for that. But that's not me.
Yeah, you also did, and thank you for that. And I agree 100. I think Andre agrees 100%. I think Andrew agrees 100%.
100%.
I mean, we do pay the bills, like you say. We get that call, and that's what they want. Okay, then fine, do that. But if it's something that we have control over, I can attest to both of these great guys up here that produce records. They're like, hey man, can you drop some bass on here for me? I'm like, wait, what are you?
And I don't like to tell everybody what to play. I'll guide you, and if it's not working, I can give you a suggestion. But I want you in that record. I really want you. I want to feel you. I want to feel your human spirit.
Right.
I want to capture you. That's why if you listen to a Winans record and you listen to a Keith Green record, there's nothing similar about those.
Right.
Because I'm trying to get them and trying to get him, and I'm trying to. I want you. I'm your champion. You know, I'm the guy. I want you to be your best.
I like that.
That's what I want, and I want to protect the artist where they're always doing their best and they sound good. But I don't, that other thing is just not right. I'm not going to name a guy, but I did a session for a guy who's a very big artist. I was just T-Bone Burnett's a producer I work with, who I love, and he had me arrange some background vocals, just kind of things I learned from Andre. I'd go in and throw on, and they were going to mix it right then. And it was one part he was just severely out of tune, and he said, "Well, I got to go for a meeting." He told the engineer, "You fix that, right? Fix it, sure." tune them on up. That's what they do. They tune them on up.
Yeah.
If I was producing, I'd say, no, you're going out there and you're singing it again and singing with all your heart. I'm not going to pitch correct you.
Speaking of singing,
you're capable of that.
Speaking of singing with all your heart, here's one of the most phenomenal, incredible singers. A lot of people do not know this artist. Her name is Crystal Murden. And Andrew Swift said earlier, you orchestrate on the drums.
That's the way. I mean, that's the way I'm thinking. Coloring it and trying to see what it needs. It kind of speaks to me. I try to be inspired, and inspired by having great people around me, and that's what I love. That's why I love jazz music. Is it was music where people work together, and I try to bring that into the productions where we all are working together. That's Alex that put me on percussion. I always get inspired by Alex. He seems to pick me up right where I need to be picked up. You know?
Yeah, Alex is incredible. I hear all the little intricate toys that he's pulling out.
Yeah.
Speaking of that jazz music, here's a big jazz influence on this very album. All you can do is be silent after that song. I'm gonna tell you, those very tears every time I listen to this album.
Yeah, yes, I'm thankful.
This album has blessed a lot of people for many years, and it's still blessing a lot of people for many years.
Not to try to get overly spiritual, but there was a point in the mid '80s when I started getting discouraged with Christian music just because of the not being paid and the different things that happen. And I had friends who were getting hit records and doing well to the Lord. You know, it's that the business of it doesn't seem right, and would really tried to do my best, and that the rewards don't seem to be there. And he spoke to my heart and said, "Is that what you want to do? You want to go and make pop music and do that?" And I kind of hesitated. Then I felt him speak to my heart and said, "I've given you the privilege to do music that will live forever. Would you rather do something that would last a short time, or would you rather do something that would be sung for eternity?" And I just said, "Forgive me, Lord. I just want to do what."
And you did.
Do what I'm supposed to do. You know, that's and so I'm thankful. You know, when I hear that, because it still sounds relevant. It doesn't sound dated. It doesn't, you know, it still moves me. And I know in heaven right now, Andre's got a whole lot of songs, and I'm going to be doing those. Because I do believe this with all my heart, that this life is just temporal. And I do believe there's an afterlife, and that there's a God who loves us, and who died for us, and that is available to come and help us, and that he cares about us, and that we do have a heavenly home. And I'm excited for the future.
Amen. Me too. I guess I have to do this, right? I don't want to, because that was so, I feel like we should just end on the note that we were just at. But let me just say this really quick. You worked with Quincy Jones on The Color Purple.
I did.
Touch on that for a second.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was the first movie that I worked. I played drums on some movie stuff. Michael Lang got me on a John Williams session for Star Wars for some little Ewok stuff, and I'd done some drums on a few isolated movies. But most movies don't have drum set generally. But I'd done some. but this was the first thing I'd ever been tasked with. And Quincy called Andre and said, I've got this movie and there's going to be a lot of gospel music in it, and I wanted to see if you could write it. And Andre was nervous, and Andre said, will you come and meet with Quincy with me? Will you help me on the music with it? And I said, sure. And the big number he was worried about or concerned about, the big number for them, a sister, I think, was the big number in the movie, but the big number was Quincy just said, well, Stephen needs to have a song, then it needs to do 3 or 4 different things. And it's like something to call Suge's character out of the juke joint, to hear the church calling her. And then it needs to kind of change as she starts to go toward the church. And then it needs to come in, that it gets more life as she comes in. And then it needs to be a celebration after she reunites with her father. And Andre didn't really know how to articulate that, because Andre's a complete songwriter. This is another story. This is not really songwriting in that way. This is telling a story in pictures.
Right.
And so I spent about a week with Andre formalizing that. Quincy said, Steven Spielberg would like to call it, maybe God's trying to tell you something, because that's what the sermon's going to be. And so that's what we worked with. And we kind of started with the traditional Church of God in Christ. Yes, yes, yes. The call to hear that being called. And we just, Tata added the thing, speak, Lord, speak to me. And we just took it and played with it. And Andre and I worked on it and gave it to him and played drums on it. And I did a couple more things for it. And it ended up being a big part of the movie. And, they let Spielberg pick, obviously it's his movie, but he had different singers for him to listen to. Andre gave him singers to try the different voices, and Stephen picked Tata, not knowing that Tata was Latino. That Tata's the voice of Suge Avery. And it was fun. It was fun to see the movie and how emotional the movie was. And now when I run into, a lot of African-American movie producers, television producers, that song was meant a lot to them, I don't hear about that song much, but within the film and television industry, oh my God, you co-wrote Maybe God's Trying to Tell You Something? Mm-hmm. That meant so much to me when I saw that movie. And so that, it was good. It was fun. Quincy was great. He's another one that tries to get performances out of people. Mm-hmm. Keeping the beat. Just keep the beat and make it funky, and keep that thing moving. And that's right. I'm very comfortable with that. So I don't get to do that much anymore, but that's what I'm comfortable with.
We got to get you to do that again. I need you to produce some records. Maybe I'll get you to help me produce my next record.
I will. I'm not. My phone is not ringing that much right now, Reggie.
I sure will.
I just want to say thank you for your humility and for your vulnerability tonight and sharing with us, and really inspiring just hearing you talk about the purpose behind the music that you're producing, and that means more to you than that moment that you shared about when you felt God just spoke to you and said, I've given you the privilege of this. That's so powerful. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. That. Thank you. Well, I'm blessed. I'm fortunate to have been able to work with such incredible people and to be a part of music that is still being sung and still means something in it. And it still sounds good to me. I told Reggie this. I haven't been revisiting any of the music I produce. I don't have the records. I don't listen to them. The only one I had was the Winans. Had that in my car. And I was pulled into Gelson's Market in LA a few months ago, and I was listening to the Winans record, and I turned my car off, and there was a woman still playing the Winans record from the same album right next to me, which cracked me up. That was surprising. But other than that, I haven't revisited. And during this time of being shut in alone, people started asking me to post some things, and I started revisiting. And because I'll say, I had too much echo on this, and the drums are too loud, or this is right. Everything bugs me, and I just was back in the producer's mode, and I wasn't able to enjoy anything. But I started listening back to what the higher purpose was, and then I was touched because the message is clear, what we were trying to do, and I think presented in a different way musically than anybody had done it before.
Yes. Well said.
You
Well,
didn't even get to Danniebelle, which is another time. But Danniebelle was groundbreaking to me too.
Danniebelle.
Russell Ferrante told me that his parents were pastors, and and he didn't like the music, and they gave him Danniebelle, and that just changed him. So it means a lot to me. That if you could, same thing with Raphael Sadiq told me that this music played his life.
You mentioned Danniebelle. I'm not going to play anything, but there's a Danniebelle record you guys did, and there's an instrumental as the last song on the B side of the record.
Yeah, that was a live album in Sweden.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not playing on that. I was in the truck. That one, and I just liked the band. The drummer's a really great drummer named Per Lindvall, who became the top drummer in Sweden and played with the Brecker Brothers, and then has come over here and done things. And he was 17 at that time. And I just liked the band. They played this instrumental, I think, early on, and I just said, why not keep it on the album?
Yeah. And you can find it on the album, right? But you can't find it again the album is on iTunes, like a best of. There's compilation. That's not on there though. They cut that. I can't even find that on YouTube. I'm gonna grab that album from my sister's house, and I'm going to put that.
Well, Danniebelle's daughter has it, and she's around. You can find her on Facebook. She has all Danniebelle stuff. And look up Danniebelle where her masters are, and Cynthia has it. She will get you a copy of it.
I actually want to recut that with my band on.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
I can't remember who wrote it. I know that it was Andre's saxophone player at the time, Glenn Myerscough, fell in love with a Swedish girl and married her, and he was playing saxophone on that.
Wow.
And
he stayed out there?
He stayed in Sweden for about 10 years, and then they moved back to LA. Glenn Myerscough.
Oh, Bill, so many incredible stories. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this. We're going to stay in touch.
Okay, absolutely. Love you guys. Thanks for being on here.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for listening and joining in. This was incredible.